And here we go. All right, guys, welcome back to Surfing the Tide, Season 1, Episode 8. We've got Christian Sykes on tonight. It's going to be an awesome episode.
How
Welcome
you
in.
doing? How you doing?
Yes, sir. How's it going?
Man, it's good. It's July, which, halfway through July, last month before football starts, just a few more months till basketball starts. That's I think that's why I'm here, right? Talk a
Yeah.
little bit about basketball.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'll throw a little bit of golf in there and some football for sure at the end. But yeah, for sure. Covering some off-season basketball, definitely. It'll be fun. Yeah, so you run oh my lord, I'm blanking on the name of the podcast. Crimson Crossover, geez. So you run Crimson Crossover, so tell us a little bit about that for a second.
Yeah, well, Crimson Crossover, the podcast is a basketball podcast specifically kind of tailored towards Alabama fans. We talk a lot about different Alabama basketball things. Sometimes touch on some SEC stuff as it does come up. But Crimson Crossover in and of itself, the kind of direction we started going is just a site, a podcast network that Alabama fans or fans of. I guess right now we have baseball and golf as well as basketball. Can go and just consume some content that isn't really out there. So we have, like I said, we have a baseball podcast called The Weekly Joe, hosted by Paul Graham. And then we have a golf podcast hosted by myself, Charles Branch, and Matthew Travis called the Mulligans and Milkshakes podcast, kind of a play on,
Yes.
when Alabama wins a tournament, they get milkshakes.
Right.
And then obviously we have Crimson Crossover hosted by, again, myself, Charles Branch, and then Joey Blackwell, former beat writer for Bama Central.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I've watched a couple of y'all's episodes. I've really enjoyed them personally. They've been fun to listen to. Y'all recently had Ryan Pannone on, and what was it? The most recent one, I believe.
Yeah, we released an interview with Ryan Pannone this week. Our episode before that was with Preston Murphy. So I think we're trying to go this summer and do kind of like a coaching series, a coaching podcast series. So hopefully trying to get the new head assistant coach Brian Adams on, Adam Ballman, who's director of strategy and analytics, and then fingers crossed if we can get up the list fast enough, Nate Oates. So we're on the list for Oates, but who it remains to be seen whether or not we can actually get him on the podcast. So
That'd be really cool, man. I would enjoy watching that. That'd be neat. I know he's been on a few podcasts. I think recently, but I've definitely seen him being interviewed plenty recently because the whole Kentucky job opened up at some point, and there was somebody who completely misquoted the article that came out about that. They were saying how basically Coach Oates said that he had considered it when that wasn't the quote at all. It was hilarious. I can't remember the exact thing, but it was just way off. It was so funny. But anyway, yeah, so that'd be neat though. I've seen Kalen DeBoer's been in a bunch of interviews recently too. It's kind of cool having an Alabama coach who's in so many podcasts and so many interviews. It's neat because Coach Saban never did that. It's awesome.
yeah, it's especially for football, right? I've talked to a few people within the program that they just the accessibility that people have as far as they're allowing media to come back into practices. They're allowing players to come do interviews. The boards on you see them on Feinbaum, things like that. Where I think for Alabama football, I'm not saying that losing Nick Saban was a good thing because losing the greatest of all time is never a good thing.
Sure.
But as far as modernizing and adapting to a new NIL era and a social media era that I feel at times Alabama kind of was behind on under Nick Saban. I think Kalen DeBoer is probably the guy that you want leading that charge. I mean, heck, I think someone said that he has a Snapchat.
He does, yes. I saw that. I saw that he was actually. I think it was LT Overton actually said that he can just snap Kalen just on a whim. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
But you're not wrong. I mean, it's been so modernized with Kalen coming in, and I love that too. Noah and I, my usual co-host, I think it was either last episode or the episode before that, but we were talking about how the coaching changes. It's so interesting how with Saban it was such a traditional format of coaching and his style and his program. He was the dictator. It was him talking. None of the assistants got to talk usually. But with Kalen, first off, you get a lot more publicity. But second off, he's on social media. And that is one of the coolest things about him, I think, is that he's that much more accessible, but you can also hear his voice a whole lot more. We get a peek into the practices in the off season. We get a peek into the practices in the regular season too. But I thought that was just the neatest thing. That on top of his energy level. I mean, I'm not saying Nick Saban never had a high energy because he definitely did. But I mean, Coach DeBoer, his I guess you could say his modern skill set as far as building relationships and his energy level, yeah, just in general. But it's for sure built for this era. And we're talking about how he's built more for the NIL era and stuff like that. Because, man, they had, 50 or 75 kids on campus at one point towards the beginning of the recruitment cycle. It was some insane number like that, and they dominated it. It was wild. And it's just really cool watching the new regime kind of get swung into place. It's real neat. So we're obviously here to talk about off-season basketball a lot more. So I was going to ask you. So obviously there's a couple spots to fill with some new names, given the departures and the additions that we've made. But who do you think our starting lineup's going to be? I've definitely seen a bunch of predictions, but you being kind of the insider you are, I guess, per se, what would you say?
Oh, well, first of all, I wouldn't classify myself as an insider, right? I'm just a guy that sometimes gets some information.
Sure.
And I'm a fan that likes to talk Alabama basketball, but I have a different starting lineup than most people are projecting. I think the most projections I've seen has been Sears at the 1, and 1 is not the position. It's just how it goes down in the order, just so everyone is aware. Alabama plays a brand of positionless basketball and is not defined by, like, Sears, I could say, is the 1, but could be playing a shooting guard role at the 1. You know what I'm saying? So, so the ones I've seen the most is Sears, Reitzel, Youngblood, Grant, and then obviously Cliff Amori. My starting lineup is Sears, Youngblood, Darian Reed, Grant Nelson, and Cliff Amori.
Okay. Yeah, mine was a little bit different from that. I had Reitzel at the 2 spot, at shooting guard or small forward somewhere in there. But I definitely have Darian Reed starting for sure. I have not decided on Jaron Stevenson or Grant. I've heard Coach Oates, he was talking about this in I think it was Alabama Roundball's podcast, but he was talking about how Grant has been just kind of hurt all offseason, so they've been trying to get him healthy. But Jaron, I mean, we all know he's super dominant. He's awesome. But Cliff for sure at the 5, no doubt. We have to have a rim protector. But yeah, I have a similar one to you for sure. But I mean, we ran Estrada, Sears, Latrell together a lot last year, as was saying in that most recent episode. I was listening to that. But with the team right now that we have being as talented as deep as it is, what type of system do you see us running? Do you still see us running just like the positionless basketball or more of a traditional style, or what do you think?
Well, and I'll say this first on Grant. Grant's dealing with an abdominal injury as well as a knee injury. Coach Pannone, if anyone's listened to the interview that we had with him, Grant sustained an injury in January and was really unable to practice much outside of just standard team practices. He wasn't able to go to shoot-arounds. He wasn't able to do the additional weightlifting that most players do throughout the season. And in the offseason, when they did their end-of-season physicals, they found out that he had an abdominal injury and a knee injury that he's kind of been nursing. So he hasn't been able to do much in the offseason. As far as the kind of style we're going to play, I view Grant moving out of that more traditional 5 role, kind of like he played last year, moving away from that and playing a more of a role like he did versus North Carolina and Clemson, which is kind of a slashing, attack the basket, post up type of role. Because you do have Cliff Amori down in the paint, being that lob dunker spot threat, rim runner, big with the pick and roll type of offense that we've grown accustomed to seeing with the likes of like Charles Bediako and Jordan Bruner. As far as the guard lineup is concerned, do I see a scenario in which we play three guards? Absolutely. Youngblood, I think, can switch between the 2 and the 3. I think LeBaron Filan can switch between the 1 and the 2. Mark between the 1 and the 2. Aiden Holloway, I think, is more of a traditional 1. Reitzel can play. Technically, he played the 3 last year. There's a lot of different combinations that I completely forgot about Houston Mallett that could also play the 3 or the 2. So there are scenarios where you could have a lineup, right, hypothetically, of Sears, Reitzel, Youngblood, Reed, and Grant Nelson, right?
Sure.
What is that? Sears, Reitzel. Yeah, Sears, Reitzel, Youngblood, Reed, Grant Nelson. Like, that's a shooting lineup that you could do. Like, there's so many different combinations that projecting the lineup, I don't envy the staff. It's going to be hard to make decisions on who plays, what minutes everyone gets. And you're not even mentioning Jaren Stevenson, who could be a potential first round pick next year, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I can't remember who I remember seeing talking about this. It was like, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, but somebody was saying on one of their interviews that they look at this lineup and they see, holy crap, like most of these guys, if not all of them, could start just about anywhere in the country. I mean, all of these guys are starters that we have on our roster. Not really a single one of them is honestly just a role player. So I thought that was really interesting, and that's really a big reason why I raised up the question to you. How do you see like the rotations happening and stuff like that, and who do you see starting? Because I mean, we have that deep of a roster. Like this year is supposed to be a big run for us, and it's gonna be so fun to watch. But yeah, speaking of which, how do you see the rotations happening? I mean, obviously, I mean, probably LeBaron's probably going to be going at the 1. Let's be honest. Sears going to be starting there for sure. But I mean, like Latrell, Houston, Chris. I mean, where do you see? How do you see all that happening? Also the forwards too.
Yeah, so if I'm just going down the line, right? So Sears, obviously, he's like clear-cut starter. Like there's no question Mark Sears is starting for this basketball team next year.
Yeah.
At the 1, it's hard because I think Aiden probably gets the backup 1 minutes but I don't think that Aiden gets as many minutes as LeBaron Filan. Okay. So for LeBaron, I see him as a backup 2 hybrid 1. That's kind of what they're viewing him as. He's got a lot of length. He's been doing really well in practice defensively, been shooting really well. I've heard nothing but really, really good things about LeBaron this offseason. So I expect him to have a big role. He's kind of like a group chat that I'm in. We always have narratives where we pick like a player and we say like a narrative. My narrative is that LeBaron Filan's going to be the 7th man on this team.
Okay. Yeah.
So obviously a young blood I think would be the 2. The only reason I don't have Reitzel starting is because I don't think that the staff would want to bring Darian Reed, Aiden Holloway, LeBaron Filan, Aiden Sherrill, and Jaren Reed. That's super inexperienced as far as off the bench. And so having a guy like Latrell Reitzel, who's a 5th-year guy coming off the bench that can score, was the 4th most efficient player in college basketball last year, I think it would be beneficial. So I think Youngblood, Reitzel are that like 2 position. But like I said, I think LeBaron Filan takes up a lot of those like backup minutes between the 1 and the 2. For the 3, again, Youngblood, Reed, Houston Mallett. Those are the 3 that I have, kind of slated for that 3 position. Any way, shape, or form you want to do that. For the 4, this is where it gets interesting because and you can also throw in Mo Diabate for the 3, but I think he would have to improve his shot significantly to be able to play that position. For the 4, this is where it gets interesting because I think it's Grant Nelson, clear as day. He's a 5th-year guy. He's gonna play the 4. But I think Jaron Stevenson is too good to keep off the floor. But then that comes into question. What do you do with Mo Diabate, who, at times last year, I mean, in the Grand Canyon game, he won us the game. He's a really good defensive guy. Maybe he's a change of pace, four that they bring in some from time to time to kind of set the tone defensively. And then at the five, I mean, this is pretty easy. You have Cliff Amori, Aiden Sherrill, and I think Grant probably sometimes plays the five as well. And there could be a scenario in which Grant plays the five, Mo Diabate or Jaron Stevenson plays the four, and then you go all the way up from there. So
yeah, I would think that would really just be in situations where we need shooters in, and that's probably. Well, that is kind of the perfect segue actually into the next thing that I was going to ask you, which is who do you think is going to be our sixth man next year? If any, just one guy. It might be a couple different people because you were saying you think LeBaron's going to be like our seventh man next year. So, what are your thoughts on that?
So if Reitzel starts, the sixth man is going to be Darian Reed, which is crazy to think about because the dude's like, I don't know how you keep him off the floor. I don't know how you keep him out of the starting lineup. Like, he's that good, especially defensively. So if Reitzel starts, I think it's Darian Reed. If Darian Reed starts, I think it's Reitzel. Another name to be on the lookout for. I know it's crazy because like I'm about to list like four people. Jaron Reed or Jaron Stevenson is another guy. I think Jaron averages like 15, 20 minutes a game next season, right? And then Aiden Sherrill, I've heard really good things. He's done. I mean, he's going up against Cliff Amori every single day in practice. He's only going to get better as the season goes on. So it might be a case where, like much like Jaron Stevenson, you can't keep him off the floor because by the end of the season he's improved so much. But I generally don't expect much from freshman bigs unless they're like Anthony Davis, Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, that's kind of similar to what I had. I had like if Chris Youngblood doesn't start, I've got him coming in at 6 because I mean he was the AAC co-player of the year last year. He's from what I've heard, he's been just doing amazing in practice this offseason. But LeBaron, I mean, you said that he's going to be like our seventh guy, you think. I actually have him as a candidate for that sixth man because, I mean, number 3 point guard in the 24 class. I mean, he averaged like, 35 or something like that for Baker back when he was in high school. It was something ridiculous like that. I mean, he's just tearing it up also from what Coach Oates was saying in one of these interviews recently. And so I could definitely see him for sure. And I think that we're going to be rotating more guards than we will be and small forwards for sure than we will be bigger guys. What's his name? Aiden Sherrill, for sure. Definitely a candidate. I personally think it'll be more smaller guys, though, than big men. But that's just me. But I also had, like you said, Darian Reed. That's another one, I think. But again, like you said, how do you keep that guy off the floor? I mean, he's incredible. He's a McDonald's All-American. He just helped win gold for the FIBA U18 team for the U.S. I mean, he's incredible. And so I don't see how you keep him off the floor either, frankly. But as far as freshmen goes, speaking of which freshman do you think / transfer will be the biggest impact for us this coming year?
I mean, the easy choice is Cliff, but I'm going to go Chris Youngblood.
Okay.
Main reason for that is, by all accounts that I've heard and listened to interviews and all of this, Chris Youngblood is taking on the role of a leader on this team. Little more vocal than the likes of Grant Nelson and Mark Sears. Not saying that those guys aren't leaders, but they're just a little bit more reserved. Whereas Chris is not reserved. He's going to be very vocal, and he's taking the challenge of being the leader of the team, on his back. So I think as far as not necessarily impact specifically on the court, but off the court as well, I think Chris Youngblood's going to have the biggest impact of the new guys on the team.
Okay. Yeah. I had the obvious answer, Cliff. Yeah, for sure. I mean, for obvious reasons, we need a better rim protector this year. I mean, as good as Grant Nelson is, he just was not not the rim protector that we needed last season. And that was obvious against a great example is Purdue. I mean, Zach Edey was just dominating that game. It was insane. But yeah, Chris is a great choice too. I personally had Darian Reed being the biggest freshman impact, Cliff being the biggest transfer. But Darian, I mean, number 11 recruit overall on ESPN and on 3. He's been tearing it up like we were saying. Just incredible player. So I see him being the biggest freshman impact. But as far as realistic expectations go for this team next year, I mean, I'm personally thinking Elite Eight or better would be anything less would be a disappointment. But I mean, obviously the tournament you can't really predict that though. So what are your thoughts on that?
Man. So for anyone that's listened to our spaces, you know, I always do within spaces. I always do like, what's your expectation for the rest of the season? Just because like the first year we were doing spaces, people got mad. This was the 2021-2022 year. So the year that we lost to Notre Dame, and Javon Quinterly tore his ACL and all of this. And so, you know, everyone comes on there and they're like, oh, this team's so bad. They didn't exceed expectations, blah, 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 blah. You know, all these crazy talk. Because the year before, you know, Herb Jones, we get to Sweet 16, we lose to UCLA, blah, blah, blah. So after every space now, at the end of them, I always go and ask people their expectations. And the reason I do that is because, like this year, for example, going into the SEC play, everyone said 13-5 in the SEC. Having a top 5 seed, whatever, would be good. That would meet their expectations. You know, halfway through SEC play, you know, we're top of the conference. You know, it looks like we might be a 3 seed, 2 seed, and then we fall off a cliff, and everyone's, you know, mad. And I'm like, well, I have proof right here of you saying that you're not mad of this. And so because I asked them in January and they said this was the expectation. Yeah. So for expectations for me, I'm a little bit not down on the team. I think the team's excellent. I think the talent's going to be amazing. But generally how I go about these things is I think Alabama's going to be a top 2 team in the SEC.
Yeah.
I think the talent is amazing. I think coaching staff's amazing. Adding the guys that we did. I think that they should be a 3 seed or higher in the NCAA tournament. And this is the crazy part. In the NCAA tournament, any team can lose to anyone on a given night. And I always tell people, you know, the maximum expectation that I have for a team is a Sweet 16. Yeah. Like that's the max. Like I'm not going to expect anything higher because, you know, Purdue loses to a 16 seed. Virginia loses to a 16 seed. You know, North Carolina lost to us. They were number 1 seed. Like you just never know. So I'm happy with getting in the tournament. My expectation for this team's a Sweet 16. Anything past that, I'm happy because Alabama's only been past the Sweet 16 twice right now. So it's kind of where I'm at.
Hopefully many more.
Many more.
Hopefully. But I mean, I've got the list of mid-majors and the list of bigger teams that we face next season. It's, I mean, from November 11th to December 14th. I looked this up today again, but we have, and it's a bunch of them. It is McNeese State at Purdue versus Illinois in Birmingham, the CM Newton Classic, against Houston and Las Vegas in the Players Era Festival. Then in game 2 of that against Notre Dame or Rutgers in that same thing. And then game 3 of that tournament. So that's 6 right there. And then at North Carolina in the ACC SEC Challenge. So that's 7. And then versus Creighton. And holy smokes. I think Nate Oates might be out of his mind. That's a heck of a stretch right there, man.
Well,
holy smokes.
Well, I'll say this. And I had expect in that second game of the Players Invitational to play Rutgers, who have Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, 2 5-star guys.
That's right. I forgot about that. Jeez.
But I'll say this. Nate's not scared of competition.
Oh no,
Nate's not going to go and play, the East-West school of the blind out here. He's gonna schedule hard, and here's the thing about the schedule, right? There are years. So the year that we went to the Sweet 16 the first time with Herb Jones, we were 6-5 in non-conference. And then they won 16 games in the SEC, were the number 2 seed. And then the year we were the number 1 overall seed, we were 4-3 at one point in the non-conference. And then all of a sudden Alabama, they go on a roll and they're the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
So there's a thought process where you schedule hard, you figure out the issues that you have within your team, figure out the things that you need to work on early in the season. 1, it helps with NCAA tournament seeding. 2, it helps with matchups, because the way bracket rules work for most people that I've studied this kind of stuff religiously, the NCAA doesn't like to play teams against teams that they've already played. So, for example, like North Carolina, we're going to go play North Carolina.
Yeah.
The odds of us playing North Carolina in the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament, because we've already played them, are significantly lower.
Okay.
And so you're going to get better matchups because you're playing harder competition, because they don't want to see you face those same teams again.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it helps shrink the schedule. So that also.
Yeah. I just looked at the schedule. I was like, Coach Oates might just be preparing us for the tournament just throughout the season, preparing us for that grind. He's got to be. Just considering the mid-majors too, figured I might as well mention these. Obviously, I've mentioned McNeese State. They're and so their projections for their conference too, by the way. They're projected first. Arkansas State, one of our former assistants, whose name I'm completely blanking on at the moment.
Hodgson.
Sorry?
Brian Hodgson.
Yes, you will learn very quickly. I'm terrible with names. But Arkansas State predicted first in their conference. UNC Asheville predicted second. North Dakota predicted seventh, but still. And one more, South Dakota State predicted first. And, good Lord. You're not wrong. He's not scared of competition, for sure. But let's see. So we hired Brian Adams. Wanted to mention this next from the Pistons as our third and final assistant on our coaching staff. So I saw that Ryan Pannone said that he lives and breathes defense. End quote. But we now have 2 former NBA assistants in Pannone and Adams, and obviously Pannone being the offensive great that he is, and Adams being the defensive great that he is. So figured I'd ask you, what do you think their impacts individually are going to be on the team next year as assistants from that stance?
Well, you look at Ryan Pannone, right? Alabama at one point last season had the 3rd best offense in KenPom history.
Yes, it did. Before
Latrell Wrightsville got hurt.
Yeah.
So you talk about the impact of Ryan Pannone. If you talk to Ryan, which again we had the chance to be able to do that, this week, he doesn't credit himself for anything. He credits Nate Oates for everything about the offense. But I'll say this: before Ryan Pannone got here, Alabama didn't have the 3rd best offense in KenPom history.
No, they didn't.
They didn't. So while he will say that Oates is doing everything, I think the wrinkles that he's put in to the offense, the kind of motion offense that he likes to run, the shot efficiencies that he talks about, where the funny story was we were talking about mid-range shots, and he said when he was a head coach in the squadron, when his players would take mid-range of practice, he made mid-range worth 0 points. So they could take a mid-range, but it wouldn't count for anything. And but that's just like a sidebar. But, the analytical, motion offense that he's trying to run, where he doesn't care who it is. If you're open, pass the ball to the open person. It's just easy offense, simple, easy offense. But as far as Brian Adams is concerned, last year the staff kind of struggled. The staff and the players kind of struggled with some defensive concepts. The rim protection obviously wasn't there, just based because Charles Bediako left. That wasn't an expectation to leave. But when anytime that you can bring 2 NBA assistants onto your staff that are specialized the way that both of these guys are, so Brian Adams with defense, Panome with offense, you're going to be good. David Griffin, or is it David Griffin? Is that the guy, the Pelicans president or GM?
I'll have no idea.
I think it's David Griffin. When Panome was making a decision to come, whether or not to come to Alabama, he said Alabama's the 31st NBA team.
I did see that, yeah.
Because of the sets and the style that they run.
Yeah.
That was before we hired Brian Adams.
Yeah.
And so now, in my opinion, you have the best recruiter in the country in Preston Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
You have one of the best offensive minds in the country in Ryan Panone. And then Adam Ballman's elite at strategy and analytics. I think he's a really key cog to the program that a lot of people don't talk about. And then on top of that, now you're bringing Brian Adams in, who, by all accounts, is a defensive genius, right? That the defensive concepts that he has and that he's been able to do in the NBA are just going to bring another dimension to this Alabama team. So, and you got Nate Oates. Yeah. So, I mean,
exactly. Well, let's see here. So, we have got the summer league starting up. It's actually already started, but we've got a few guys in there. Now NBA star Brandon Miller, Roll Tide, playing for the Hornets. Noah Clowney on the the Nets. And Charles Bediako on the Magic. Alex Reese on the Blazers. Keelan Ellis, who broke out this year. He did fantastic, especially in the playoffs. They knocked out Steph Curry and the Warriors. He's on the Kings. J.D. Davidson on the Celtics. He actually just got signed to a two-way contract with them. That was pretty cool. I saw that. Who was it? Oh, Lord. Dude, I'm so bad at names. Holy smokes. Our guy just got signed to the Pistons like 2 days ago.
Oh, Aaron Estrada?
Yes, jeez. Is he on the Pistons summer league?
Yeah, he's on an Exhibit 10 contract, which is basically a summer league contract.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't see him on the list. But to finish it off, Jaden Shackelford is on the Thunder and Kyra Lewis is on the Rockets. He was on the Pelicans at one point. I remember that. He was playing with Herb. What was that? Last year or the year before?
He got traded last year to Toronto and then to the Utah Jazz.
Yes, that's right.
Additionally, Charles Bediako is on the Magic.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex Reese is on the Trailblazers.
Yes. Yeah. That I don't know how any of them have been doing. I'll be honest with you. I've not watched a lick of those games. But do you know anything about that so far with how they've been doing?
I'm not sure about Clowney. Brandon's on the USA select team right now. So basically he's on the scout team for the Olympics. So he's not with the Hornets at all. Keon Ellis scored 31 points last night for the Kings in their summer league game, which I'm surprised personally that he's even playing in the summer league because he's their backup shooting guard. So I don't really know why he's playing. But same with Brandon. I don't really know why he's on the roster either. Generally, your better players, you're not going to put on there, but it is what it is. JD, I'm unsure. I know he just got signed to a two-way. I haven't seen Alex Reese. Jaden Shackelford didn't play in their last game. And then I haven't seen anything on Charles Bediako or Kyra Lewis. So kind of unknown.
So I haven't really been following it very closely, but do you know how our 2025 class is going with basketball? I have not looked.
Yeah, so Travis Branham just came out with an article today on 247. If everyone, anyone listening, go check them out. Mikael Brown Jr. is a guard target that was a potential reclass candidate that we, he didn't reclass obviously, but we're targeting him. Jasper Johnson is another guy that we're targeting. Both I think we sit in a pretty good position for. And Really, I don't really know outside of those two kind of who we're targeting. Um, I know that the staff's doing evaluations now, but I would expect that kind of stuff to pick up. Maybe the end of this month, maybe August, we'll hear more about some recruits because generally basketball players sign in November,
Yeah,
and so you'll hear end of August, September, kind of who we're going after. But I think Jasper Johnson might commit somewhere this month, so be on the lookout for that. But I think Alabama sits in a good spot for both of those guys.
definitely. Yeah, I remember seeing. I don't remember who it was, but it was one of the 5-star pluses. He had us in like one of his like top 5 or something like that he was considering. I could not tell you who it was. It might have been Jasper actually, but I remember that. So that's pretty awesome. But as far as I'm going to switch a little bit into football for just a second. So we're getting towards the end of this, but Keelan Russell and Dejon Lee just got their 5th stars on 247, and then I saw Michael Carroll rose up to number 12 overall in the On3 rankings. So that's pretty awesome. I was waiting for for Keelan to get his 5th star. We were all anticipating it, and that's wonderful.
Yeah,
And I was so mad about Dejon Lee. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I was so mad about Dejon Lee when the On3 rankings just came out like a week ago. They had him at a 4-star, and I believe it was just outside the top 50. And the funniest part about it is that Georgia, he was their number 1 target at that position. So then their number 2 guy ended up hopping Dejon, and he's actually a higher rank. And I thought that just made me so mad. Oh my gosh, that was hilarious to me.
Yeah, and I know it's July, and I know rankings don't really matter right now, but the logic that that On3 used, one for Keelan Russell's ranking, which was his high school team's really good, so he can't be that great of a player because he's surrounded by great talent.
Yeah.
To justify them not giving him a 5-star rating, I don't agree with it, especially when he was the Elite 11 MVP. Was like the top performer at the Rivals camp. Blah blah blah. Where you have like Bryce Underwood, for example. Not saying Bryce isn't a good player or anything, but he doesn't do any of those camps and maintains his number 1 spot. So like, I don't know.
It's weird. Yeah.
But as far as like Dejon Lee dropping, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not complaining about a guy that's outside the top 50, right?
Yeah.
Like this isn't basketball where the lowest rated player on our team was the 50th overall recruit in the class. So
yeah. I'm just saying, like, give the man his flowers. Like, I mean, come on,
yeah.
he's elite. Come on now. But as for Michael Carroll, yeah, so he got upgraded to the number 12 overall ranking on 3. I saw that he's 5 stars. But you were talking about the Rivals camp. I saw he nearly pancaked a guy. I think he did actually, but it was circulating on Twitter and Instagram. He and that dude almost got into a fight, and it was really funny. He was getting in the guy's face and everything, just bullying him to the ground. He's a brute. He's huge.
Yeah, he's massive. The O-line class has an opportunity to be somewhat special if they can get Ty Haywood.
Oh yeah.
With the guys that they have already committed. I'm excited about the recruiting class. I'll say that I'm very excited about the direction. The big thing for me is, like I said previously, this is July. You have to hold on for 5 more months, right? So Alabama's doing great right now, but we've seen classes from other schools fall apart in November and December. Not saying that they're going to at Alabama, but like I want to be excited about it, but I'm also very cautious about it just because all it takes is a Georgia or a Texas to come in and say, hey, we're going to give you $2 million to come play here. And then now all of a sudden your class is falling apart. So,
I mean, that's why Jamie French is trying to go to Texas, because they've got the Lambeau dealership over there. That's the whole reason, actually, why he's not even considering Alabama anymore, is because Saban didn't hear anymore, obviously. But on top of that, we can't give him the NIL money that he wants. He's chasing the NIL, from what I've heard.
I also don't care to give players that care about Lambos.
Anything. I mean, he's great and all, but I mean, I'll take Cunningham and Lockett or Meadows any day. I don't care. Yeah, so that's fun stuff, though. I'm hoping that they don't fall off. I mean, as two Bama graduates ourselves, I mean, we want to see our team succeed. So, but I was seeing your tweet. So Dominic Clemens, just to move into golf now. So Dominic Clemens just qualified for the Open, and I just wanted you to talk about our golf guys a little bit, and maybe some of our pro guys too.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an Alabama fan and you like golf, this is the best time to get into professional golf because Davis Riley won a tournament this year. Nick Dunlap won a tournament as an amateur this year. Lee Hodges has been killing it on the tour. I mean, he's got like a few top tens. Obviously, Justin Thomas. You have Robbie Shelton. You have Wilson Furr. You have Bud Cauley's done really well. I mean, these are guys that are playing in tournaments almost every single week, right? And now you have a guy in Dominic Clemens who's a transfer from, I think he's from Stetson, and he's only going to be here for a year. But the guy almost wins the British Amateur Championship, which, by the way, that would have given Alabama in a calendar year of 24 the reigning U.S. champion or U.S. amateur and the reigning British amateur. He finished second in the British Am. And then on top of that, if he would have won the British amateur, he would have qualified for the Open because he was the British amateur. Instead, he just goes through sectional qualifying and ties Justin Rose and makes it to the Open.
Because of course he did.
Because of course, right? And then he wins a Scottish amateur tournament. I think he's in the top 8 for an amateur tournament this week as well. I was talking to John Graham, who we talked about runs Bama Pro updates, and he and I go back and forth. And I've told him, I was like, I need this guy to chill out because I need him to be on campus next year. Because he's just winning this summer.
Yeah.
But no, Alabama's got a lot to replace. Thomas Ponder graduates and is on the PGA Tour of Americas. Clayton Claycomb graduates and is now on PGA Tour Americas. And you have Nick Dunlap, who was already probably going to leave after this season, but obviously winning. I do believe that they have the number one player in the state coming in. And then obviously Dominic Clemens is coming in as well. So fingers crossed that they perform like they did this year, where they got to the NCAAs, fell just short of qualifying for nationals. But as far as college golf, Alabama's in a great spot. As far as professional golf, I think Justin Thomas shot a 62 today and is leading the Scottish Open.
I was about to mention, he's leading right now. I'm looking at it.
So he just changed putters this week. So hopefully that helps him out. But no, I've been super fortunate with golf. I've been in contact with Nick's parents. Got to walk a full 18 with them at the Wells Fargo Championship. So I've been pretty zoned in on Nick and excited to see what he does. Davis Riley's from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, where I was born, and so seeing him win was kind of cool too. So a lot of good positive things for Alabama golf this year, even if they didn't win the national championship like Auburn did, but a lot of positive things.
I was so surprised when Auburn won that championship. I was like, man, hey, give one to Auburn. Why not? Yeah. Give one to little brother. There we go. All right. Well, that'll pretty much wrap it up for tonight. I mean, you got anything to add?
No, man. Excited to be on. I'll gladly join whenever you guys want to talk hoops.
Sure.
Join our Discord. I think Noah's in it.
I got into it. Yeah.
Did you?
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I DM'd you on Twitter and got into it. Yeah.
Yeah, DM me on Twitter if you want into it, because the invites are currently closed. We had a couple of infiltration of Auburn fans into it, so I shut down the invite, like the open invite. But if you want into the Discord, then just shoot me a DM. Mainly, I'm just doing that so I can vet accounts, make sure that they're actual Alabama fans and not trolls. So
love those trolls. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Y'all like and subscribe to the pod. We appreciate y'all listening. Have a good night and God bless. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.